Done.
State University.
Stop my administration. That's what the agenda is. What we do to highways and all that kind of thing, hard data. And I went before the joint session of Congress.
Would someone just hand him a lozenge next time? I mean, the poor man. That's it for us tonight. It's happened to me, too. Thank you for watching. Remember, it's America now and forever. Freedom matters. All the proceeds go to charity. Go to lauraingraham.com. Great gear, including the new favorite. Yes, freedom matters. We'll be in Mississippi tomorrow for the Ole Miss big game against LSU, and Greg Gutfeld takes it all from here.
It is Friday, October 22nd, and straight to a Fox News alert, the FBI confirming Brian Laundrie is dead, extending an extensive nationwide manhunt for the only man of interest in Gabby Petito's murder. We are live in Florida with the latest on the investigation. Plus,
well, Mr. Attorney General was the last straw. I think it was the catalyst for a great awakening that is just getting started. I think your memo.
And Republicans defending the rights of concerned parents across the country by tearing into Attorney General Merrick Garland over his directive to investigate school board protesters as domestic terrorists.
All products coming into the West Coast go through, what am I doing here?
Is it Long Beach?
Those who just try to make this a political issue. Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID.
And President Biden pressed on the supply chain in a rambling town hall where he also appears to mock the freedom of first responders losing their jobs over vaccine mandates. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
And you are watching Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. I'm Ashley Strohmeyer.
And I'm Carly Shimbius. Both Todd and Jillian have the day off. Let's get straight to it. President Biden is pressed on the supply chain catastrophe during a CNN town hall.
Griff Jenkins is live as the White House has to walk back Biden's promise to use the National Guard to help. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Ashley and Carly. The president addressed a range of topics last night, from his stalled domestic agenda to vaccine for kids. But front and center, as you mentioned, that supply chain bottleneck causing these shortages and rising costs, to which President Biden says he would consider deploying the National Guard if his administration can't fix the problem.
You're actually talking about having National Guardsmen or women driving trucks?
The answer is yes, if we can't move to increase the number of truckers, which we're in the process of doing.
Well, that made news. However, shortly after, the White House was quick to walk it back, issuing a statement saying requesting the use of the National Guard at the state level is under the purview of governors, and we are not actively pursuing the use of the National Guard on a federal level. Meanwhile, speaking of governors, Florida's Ron DeSantis says the Sunshine State stands ready to help.
We've got capacity, and all of our ports can offer these businesses good incentives if they reroute their ships. If you're going to sit off the coast for days on end, you might as well just bring it to Florida.
Now, on the infrastructure front, the president expressed optimism that lawmakers are close to a deal. He invoked bipartisanship and compromise, despite little indication here on Capitol Hill that the stalemate is indeed breaking. And this morning, a moment, some are noting an uncomfortable moment at that, in last night's town hall where the president seemed to lose track. Watch.
40% of all products coming into the United States of America on the West Coast go through Los Angeles and what am I doing here?
Is it Long Beach?
As for that deal, Vice President Harris will be near you guys today giving remarks in the Bronx on Build Back Better. We'll see what she has to say about whether a deal is imminent or not. Ashley, Carly?
We certainly will. Griff Jenkins, live for us in Washington, D.C. Thanks, Griff.
And here's Mark Levin sounding off on the left's attempt to completely transform the American economy. Take a listen.
What do they say they want to do? Fundamentally transform our economic system. Well, you have a choice. You have a free market economic system that you have in free countries that respects individuals, creates growth and wealth for individual human beings to work their way up the ladder, or you have a centralized Marxist-type socialist economic system where morons in Washington, D.C., either who work for the civil service, not all, but enough, and the politicians decide who gets what. Now, where does that work?
Biden and Democrats are still trying to force their spending agenda through Congress as the cost of pretty much everything steadily rise. And majority of Americans list inflation as their top concern.
President Biden using the CNN town hall to mock vaccine skeptics while also saying police officers and emergency responders should be fired if they refuse to get the COVID jab.
Are those who just try to make this a political issue. Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID. No, I mean, come on, freedom.
Should police officers, emergency responders be mandated to get vaccines? And if not, should they be stay at home or let go?
Yes and yes. The mandates are working.
Biden's comments come as first responders from coast to coast are quitting or getting fired for defying jabs. Now, these workers in Seattle turning in their boots in protest of the city's vaccine mandate.
And the National Institutes of Health now admitting to funding gain-of-function research with COVID at the Wuhan, China lab. This despite its director, Dr. Anthony Fauci's repeated denials that U.S. tax dollars were used on the funding.
Dr. Fauci misled the committee at best and lied to the committee at worst by saying that tax dollars were never used for gain-of-function knowledge, for gain-of-function research.
Nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance funneled at least $600,000 of its grant money from the NIH to the Wuhan lab. The NIH claims EcoHealth was not clear about the work that was being done there.
Now, in July of 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Dr. Fauci was pressed by Senator Rand Paul about gain-of-function research. Take a listen.
Gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it. You are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Well, now Senator Paul says Fauci's stance on the Wuhan lab has been inconsistent, and the White House's top coronavirus advisor needs to answer for it.
He's been parsing words. He's been sort of kind of going around the subject, and he never fully explains why it's not gain of function. But I think his explanation is this: oh, it was inadvertent. We didn't know they were going to gain function. Well, that's what a gain of function experiment is. You don't know when you combine two viruses if it'll be more deadly, but it might be. If you have half a brain, you know, if you combine two viruses, it sure might be more deadly. This research could release something that could destroy civilization. That's coming from a scientist. That should scare us all.
Now, Fauci repeatedly denied the U.S.-funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan.
President Biden will hit the campaign trail for Terry McAuliffe in his neck-and-neck race for Virginia's gubernatorial election. Biden's squeezing in a visit to Arlington next week. His visit follows appearances from Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Barack Obama, who are also campaigning for McAuliffe as the race enters its home stretch. This as an anti-critical race theory organization launches a $1 million ad campaign against McAuliffe, the ad accusing him of minimizing the role of parents in their children's education.
Wow, a lot of money. Attorney General Merrick Garland is grilled by Republicans over on Capitol Hill over his letter calling for the FBI to investigate parents.
Jackie Ibanez joins us live as new emails show the White House knew about a letter calling parents domestic terrorists weeks before it was sent to the president. Good morning, Jackie.
Hey, good morning. Well, those emails show the White House was in communication with the National School Board Association for weeks before the liberal organization sent a letter calling parents opposed to critical race theory domestic terrorists and asking for Patriot Act surveillance. And yesterday, AG Garland faced a barrage of questions from Republicans on that bombshell memo. Listen.
When the National School Board Association says that there are these kind of threats.
Is there any connection, Mr. Attorney General, with the school board letter and then 5 days later your memo regarding school board issues?
Obviously, the letter was brought to our attention, and it's a relevant factor.
He then denied agreeing with the substance of the school board letter.
I can't imagine any circumstance in which the Patriot Act would be used in the circumstances of parents complaining about their children, nor can I imagine a circumstance where they would be labeled as domestic terrorism.
Garland also claiming ignorance of widely publicized sexual assaults in Loudoun County, Virginia schools.
Are you aware further that the boy was arrested and charged for the first assault in July but released from juvenile detention?
This sounds like a state case, and I'm not familiar with it. I'm sorry.
And dismissing the notion of financial conflict caused by his son-in-law's business, which promotes critical race theory in public schools.
Your actions may have been motivated by your family's financial stake, the curricula, the very curricula that your son-in-law is selling.
This memorandum does not relate to the financial interests of anyone.
A Fox News poll showing 73% of parents say they are extremely or very concerned about what their children are being taught in school. Republicans repeatedly asked Garland for more evidence of threats against school board members, but he did not provide anything past the letter. Ashley, Carly?
Yes, he's going to have to get back to them on that one. Jackie, thank you so much.
And now to this. Alec Baldwin kills a cinematographer and injures a director after firing a prop gun on a movie set in New Mexico. The actor reportedly seen in tears following that incident that happened during the filming of the Western film Rust. The director of photography, Helena Hutchins, was flown to a hospital and pronounced dead. The director is recovering from his injuries. So far, no charges have been filed.
Now to a Fox News alert. The hunt for Florida fugitive Brian Laundrie is over. The FBI confirming his remains were recovered in a Northport park.
Steve Harrigan joins us live as the Laundrie family lawyer addresses rumors Brian's parents planted evidence in the swamp. Steve.
That's right. The finding took place on Wednesday, just about 2 miles from where I'm standing, and local authorities say it was mainly bones that were recovered, not flesh. Keep in mind, Brian Laundrie went missing from his home about more than a month ago, so it really could have been several weeks that body was exposed to the elements and to animals as well. The FBI used a history of dental records to make that identification as Laundrie's remains. As far as the situation here goes, police say that this area was inspected thoroughly 5 weeks ago. The problem, officials say, is that much of this terrain was well underwater at that time.
I got to see firsthand the treacherous conditions that they were working on. We're talking about water levels up above almost the chest area, rattlesnakes, moccasins, alligators.
Now, by Wednesday, much of that water had already receded, and Laundrie's parents went along with authorities on that search. It was actually Laundrie's father zigzagging through the brambles. He found a bag that belonged to his son. Then police found a knapsack as well as a notebook. An attorney for Laundrie's parents say the claim that the parents may have planted personal items in the swamp, he dismissed that as hogwash. Police visited the Laundrie family home before the announcement of the identification was made public. No comment yet from the Petito family on what happened, but still some major questions unanswered. How did Laundrie die? And could the notebook that was found on the scene shed any light on the murder of Gabby Petito? Laundrie remains the only person of interest in that murder, and we expect the FBI to continue processing this site for several days ahead. Back to you guys.
All right, Steve Harrigan live for us in Northport, Florida. Thank you.
Time right now is 4:12 on the East Coast. A former teacher of the year could now lose his job because he won't get vaccinated. But that educator won't back down, and he is joining us later to explain why.
And a big show ahead. Columnist Eddie Scary Joe Concha, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, and Lara Trump all live and coming up.
Welcome back. This Afghan evacuee is charged with raping a woman in Montana. Now, he claims it was consensual, but the victim says she told him she didn't want anything to happen. The governor is raising concerns, saying in a statement, quote, "I'm calling on President Biden to immediately halt resettlements to Montana until federal agencies provide me with adequate assurance that Afghans coming to Montana are fully vetted in accordance with federal law." And fears in Washington are growing over revelations that China conducted a second hypersonic missile test. Multiple news outlets report that one launch happened in July and then the other in August. This weapon is reportedly capable of delivering a nuclear warhead. Meanwhile, Reuters reports the U.S. military had to delay a test of its own hypersonic weapon system due to a rocket failure during a launch in Alaska. Carly?
The global supply chain crisis hasn't been seen since World War II, and the U.S. is in for a retail disaster this holiday season. According to a toy expert, now common goods are flying off shelves as resellers jack up toy costs as much as 400%. Here to react, trucking executive and Georgia congressional candidate Mike Collins. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, people like you are in high demand right now because there aren't enough truck drivers out there to bring things from the ports to the warehouses. So why do you think that is?
Well, and unfortunately, you just can't flip a switch and produce truck drivers. But this is just another example of failed leadership and leadership by the Biden administration just to play identity politics. You know, we saw this problem coming. I saw this problem coming way back in middle August when I read a report that China had closed down the world's third largest port, which they have a zero tolerance for COVID. So they had one case of COVID and they closed that port down for 10 days. And that ripple effect was going to make the goods that we get for Christmas not get here this year.
Yeah.
And so when we've been out there preaching that the Chinese goods you're going to see for Christmas just isn't coming.
So how do you fix it? Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says that there's no easy fix to this.
Well, he should have seen this coming as well and prepared for it, as well as the LA port. Now, you know, operating 24 hours, 7 days a week now is not going to, you're still going to produce that you're going to put the goods on the ground, but you're still not going to be able to get them pushed through to the end user any quicker, because you're right, there is a truck driver shortage out there, but they could have done a better job of planning. And it's just one more example where there's failed leadership, and we're using this America First Last policy. You know, the Trump administration did a great job with helping with reduced regulations and other things that are causing the problems that we have today that are making U.S. manufacturers have to go overseas to produce their goods, as well as the regulations that have hampered the trucking industry for years.
Yeah. You know, you make such a good point. And when you see all of those ships out there, you realize how reliant we are on goods from other countries. And Senator Josh Hawley just introduced a bill. It's called Make in America to Sell in America. He wants more things made here so that something like this doesn't ever happen again.
And that's a good point, and we should be focusing. We should focus on America First agenda. You know, and that's a main reason that I am running for Congress, is to take that experience from small business and take it to Washington, because we have got so many career politicians in Washington today that do not understand or have the full effect of what these overreaching regulations have done to every aspect of our American economy.
Yeah, you know, we talk a lot about the people on the boats. You know, they must be very bored because they're there for weeks on end. What's it like to be a truck driver right now?
Well, the trucking industry, that is a very rewarding career. It's a neat industry to be in. Unfortunately, we are in the most regulated industry in the world. You know, you would be hard pressed to find anyone else that has to write down or keep up with what they do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of their career.
Wow.
And it's those type of, and that's okay that we keep up with it, but it's the continuous overreach and regulations that produce a lot of non-productivity.
And that may be, Mike, that may be one of the reasons why there is a truck driver shortage right now. So really quickly, we only have about 30 seconds left. When do you see things going back to normal? Because I know that there's a lot of people who are really worried about Christmas and, you know, even getting groceries at the grocery store at in a costly way.
We're reading that it's going to be into the end of 2022.
So over a year from now.
There's no easy fix. There's no quick fix. No, there's no quick fix to this. It'll keep rippling on through each cycle.
Yeah. All right, Congressman, hopeful Congressman Mike Collins, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and best of luck. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Carly.
All right.
Thank you.
Ashley, over to you.
Okay, time right now is 4:22 on the East Coast. President Biden is sounding like a broken record for repeating the same off-the-rails Amtrak story that's already been debunked.
Hans comes up and I'm getting in the car and he goes, "Joey, baby." And he said, "I just read, big deal. You know how many miles you did Amtrak?"
We are talking to columnist Eddie Scarry next.
President Biden says he hasn't had time to visit the border because he's just been too busy. Listen.
Do you have plans to visit the southern border?
I've been there before, and I haven't had a whole hell of a lot of time to get down. I've been spending time going around looking at the $900 billion worth of damage done by hurricanes and floods and weather and traveling around the world.
Well, this despite President Biden spending at least 70 days in office at his Delaware home so far. Attorney General Merrick Garland is asked to appoint a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden's art sales, but he refuses to answer the question. Listen.
Any investigations pending or otherwise with respect to any citizen of the United States.
Congressman Ken Buck pointing out Hunter Biden's art is set to sell for upwards of $500,000. This despite Hunter having no background in art and being unable to find a gallery to list his work before 2020. Ashley.
All right, Carly, thanks. Deputy White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre fires back at a reporter asking for President Biden to take more questions from the media. Listen.
First, we would humbly request the President of the United States to appear before the full press for a robust round of questions.
And he takes questions all the time.
I hear you. I'm just adding.
I get it, but this is a large White House press corps. But he does take questions.
Eddie Scarry, columnist for The Federalist and author of Privileged Victims, joins me now to discuss. Okay, Eddie, are we talking about the same president here with Jean-Pierre? Is she talking about President Biden? Surely.
I don't think so. I mean, he does when he actually is seen in front of the press. I think he does take some questions, but it's usually about 3. It's certainly nowhere near his predecessor. And this is something that I always thought was weird for Trump when he was in office. Was they used to ask the opposite. It was, when are we going to have a press briefing by the press secretary? Well, you're hearing from the actual president almost every single day. Why do you need to hear from the press secretary? That was kind of beside the point at that time. But at this time, no, they are right to want to ask questions from this president, who only answers again about 3 whenever he's actually seen. Otherwise, he simply, what does he do? He runs to CNN. I think this was his, 3rd CNN town hall since he's been in office. And meanwhile, he doesn't take actual questions from anyone else in the press corps. The New York Times, and I mean, it's not that I want to give a ton of credit and say, well, he's going to have this tough, rigorous, he's going to be run through it with any of these other outlets. And yet at the same time, we might like to hear what they have to say. We might get different questions other than from Anderson Cooper, the 3rd town hall, the 4th, if we get there.
Right. Now, it's even reporters that literally hammered President Trump. They're wanting him to talk. But do you think that the Biden administration is purposefully keeping him away from reporters and that podium?
I think he admits that in some ways. You hear him always at press conferences whenever not press conferences, when he gives remarks and then he takes a couple questions at the end of it. When he gets some questions, he says, oh, they're going to cut me off, or I'm going to get in trouble for doing too many. So I think he knows that they are trying to keep him away. And why is that? Probably because, as we've known Joe Biden for years and years and years, the longer you let him talk, the worse it gets.
Right. And that brings me to my next topic, which is that bizarre story, that Amtrak story that he keeps telling that's been debunked. Let's listen to this montage real quick and we'll discuss on the other side.
Headline came out in all the papers. Biden travels, I think it was 1.3 or 1.7 million miles. And so I'm getting on the train, and a guy named Angelo Negri came up. He goes, "Joey, baby, Joey, baby, Joey, baby, what are you doing?" And I thought the Secret Service was going to shoot him. And I thought he was going to get shot. And he said, "You travel 1,515,000 miles on Amtrak."
So that's a pretty elaborate story that he's told a couple of times. But just to kind of go back and explain this a little bit, that Amtrak employee he's referring to retired in 1993 and passed away in 2014. But Joe Biden says the conversation happened 7 years into his presidency. So that equates to 2015. So those numbers just are not lining up.
It is weird. I think that Senator Cory Booker does a similar thing where he would tell a story about this man, this drug addict named T-Boone or T-Bone, something like that. It turns out that person actually never existed. So this isn't entirely uncommon among politicians. I guess I don't know if it's exclusive to Democrats or what, but I think the weirder thing about Joe Biden telling this story, and it's part of his lore that goes back a very long time, is that he rode the Amtrak every single day as senator, and this is supposed to be this common man, this working man touch that he has. I can promise you the common man, the working man, is not going to work each day, settling into the Amtrak, settling in onto the train while someone drives them to work for I think it's like 4 hours, 3 hours to get to Delaware, with their coffee, reading the newspaper, and then they get to their private office. I've always thought that part of the story was very, very strange, that him taking the Amtrak every single day was supposed to be this common man, this working man touch. And that's nothing to say of this story that he's just making up.
Right. And then the other time he's told a story, he said he was going to visit his mom who was sick, but she died in 2010. Really quickly, we've got about 30 seconds or so, Eddie. Why do you think, with all of these stories that he's saying, this is just one, people would say maybe a minuscule story and maybe he just gets confused, but why do people continuously let him just get away with this?
Why do they let him get away with it? I don't think anyone lets him get away with it. I think they hear the story and think, well, this is Joe Biden. He likes to tell these really, really strange stories. It's kind of like, it reminds me of back during the campaign when he talked about being a lifeguard and the children stroking his leg hair. It's all kind of beside the point, but when people look back on it, they're going to say, what were we thinking again when we took this and thought that there was anything okay about this? But again, that's going to take an election.
Right. Okay. Eddie Scarry, thanks so much for being with us and giving us your take on that this morning. We appreciate it. Carly.
All right, listen to this. China pulls Boston Celtics games off its airwaves after center Ines Kanter slams the government over its abuses of the Tibetan people.
Tibet belongs to Tibetans. I'm here to add my voice and speak out about what is happening in Tibet. Under the Chinese government's brutal rule, Tibetan people's basic rights and freedoms are non-existent.
The Celtic star wearing Free Tibet sneakers during Boston's season opener. Kanter also labeling Chinese President Xi Jinping a brutal dictator. This isn't China's first beef with the NBA over human rights issues. In 2019, China cut Houston Rocket broadcasts and removed their merchandise from stores after former team general manager Daryl Morey showed support for protesters in Hong Kong. We'll see how this one plays out. And on Thursday Night Football, fans tuning into Fox to see the Cleveland Browns pick up a big win over the Denver Broncos.
Opening drive and some gashes in the run game. Johnson cuts back and no signal yet. Touchdown. Quarterback.
Cleveland's Ernest Johnson ran all over the Broncos defense, rushing for 146 yards. Backup quarterback Case Keenum also did his part, filling in for injured Baker Mayfield, throwing for 199 yards and a touchdown in the Browns' 17-14 victory. That's how that game shaped up. The time now is 35 minutes after the hour. Democrats in one state thought it was okay to share this cartoon depicting parents as a horror show just for caring about things their kids are being taught in school.
And the left is losing its grip on the Virginia governor's race. We're talking to a panel of Latino voters about why they're backing Republican Glenn Youngkin. Former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice pokes fun at Democrats during a speech at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner. Take a listen.
Looking out over this crowd, it's hard not to be struck by the mosaic that is New York. Or to notice that I haven't seen this many wine glasses since Governor Newsom dined at the French Laundry.
Rice also joked about former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, saying there, quote, wasn't enough social distancing in the world to have her work with him politically. And the official Twitter account of Connecticut Senate Democrats shares this cartoon comparing parents angry at school boards to horror villains. It depicts a woman encountering monsters like Freddy Krueger on their way to a school board meeting. The cartoon creating a stir on social media. Fox News contributor Joe Concha tweeting for state Democrats to make parents the enemy is political suicide. He is joining us next hour with more reaction.
All right, we are less than 2 weeks out from Election Day in Virginia, and the latest polls show Republican gubernatorial candidate Glenn Youngkin in a dead heat with Democrat Terry McAuliffe as Hispanic and Latino communities come out in support of the GOP outsider.
On the ballot right now in November is the future of Virginia. It's the future of America because Virginia gets to stand up and vote and make a statement for a state that, a state that's been blue, that's getting ready to elect a Republican governor.
Joining me now, co-chair of Latinos for Youngkin, Danielle Cortez, chairwoman of the Latino National Republican Coalition, Astrid Gamez, Virginia small business owner Hugo Hernandez, and Latino Coalition for Glenn Youngkin member Carmen Williams. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, Astrid, I'll start with you. You volunteer for Glenn Youngkin's campaign, and one of the reasons you do that is because you're from Venezuela, and you say the socialist message coming from Democrats scares the heck out of you.
Well, that's true. I moved to Virginia 27 years ago, and I have seen how this beautiful state has been going down the hill, and that's why, I'm sick and tired about what is happening in the state, and I meet him. I love the idea that he's a businessman, that he is a husband, a father, and he's somebody who loves Virginia like all of us. And he has his crisis, and he wants to do something very good he wants to make a change in the state.
Yeah, and Hugo, you're a small business owner, and the latest poll shows that the most important issue in deciding who to vote for in the Virginia gubernatorial race is jobs and the economy. And you say Youngkin's business background is what attracted you to him.
That was one of the main things that make him attractive to me. We need to do something really drastically here. Business are getting here every day, and things are just out of hand. Yes, we need help.
And Danielle, you have an interesting story. First of all, you're a Marine veteran, so thank you for your service. And your uncle started Univision to give Hispanics a voice, and you take issue with Terry McAuliffe trying to silence parents.
Well, that's very true. You know, Terry McAuliffe has misrepresented the facts when it comes to education. You know, he said, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. And what they're teaching is critical race theory. Even in Stafford County, the interim superintendent, Dr. Jones, came before the Board of Supervisors, totally misrepresented the fact that CRT is being taught. It's right in this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Abraham Kendi. And in that book, if I can just share one passage that will synopsize the problem. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. And the only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. We're talking about racism being taught to our children. And Terry McAuliffe calls it a dog whistle. And thank God that Glenn Youngkin has stated when he's elected governor, and I'm an independent voter, the independents are showing up in force. When he's elected governor, he will ensure that CRT is
and we see what's in that book trickle down into the school system, and that's why so many parents are upset. Carmen, you are a Peruvian American, and you say there needs to be change in Virginia.
Definitely needs to be a change. We already have 8 years of democratic government, and I didn't see any improvements. And I think Youngkin has the real vision. He's the real candidate that has the passion, the energy to make sure that Virginia is a good place to live, to raise a family, to improve our economy. And he is not only going to be the governor for Latinos, he will be the governor for all Virginians without any discrimination. And that is the reason why Latinos are moving. Latinos are trying to participate more and more and get involved in these elections to support him because his message in education, economy, and safety.
You know, Astrid, President Biden announced that he's going to be campaigning for Terry McAuliffe next week, and also former President Obama will be doing the same thing. So he's got some heavy hitters backing him. Does that concern you?
Not really, because that ticket, it doesn't mean that much to us. By this point, Latino has waking up, and we really want to change in Virginia. And I think that we are in a good shape. We are going to go and vote, and we are going to win this election.
All right. Yeah. And Hugo, a Fox News poll shows that inflation is the #1 concern among Americans. Do you think that concern will motivate people to head to the polls?
I believe so. As a business owner this year, I always think twice about raising like our prices. But like I said before, things are getting out of hand. We cannot find workers. Instead of finding workers, we get, I just got this week somebody claiming unemployment, and it's a person that we don't even know. So this is getting out of hand, and the customers are somehow, taking this cause of all this mishandling with the economy.
All right. Well, you four are all energized voters, and thank you so much for making your points loud and clear. Danielle Cortez, Astrid Gemes, Hugo Hernandez, and Carmen Williams. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me. We see the sign. All right, thanks. Ashley?
Okay, coming up, a former teacher of the year is also at risk of losing his job for not being vaccinated.
It is unfortunate after 15 plus years of dedicating myself to the profession and the students and the families of the town that I work in, that we're here.
The CDC signing off on COVID booster shots for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. For now, it's recommending them for people over 65 and as young as 18 who are at risk for COVID complications. The CDC also giving the okay to mix and match booster doses between brands. And Pfizer now reporting a third dose of its COVID vaccine, quote, drastically improves protection against the virus based on a study it conducted. General Electric workers across the U.S. are walking out of factories, protesting Biden's federal vaccine mandate. These are images from a walkout in Ohio. Others are reported in Indiana and South Carolina. GE is requiring all of its employees to get jabs or receive an exemption by December 8th. Ashley.
Okay, after dedicating his life to education, this Connecticut gym teacher is now facing termination after refusing to comply with the state's vaccine mandate and mandatory weekly testing. The 2020 Teacher of the Year spoke exclusively to Fox News Digital earlier this week.
It is unfortunate after 15 plus years of dedicating myself to the profession and students and the families of the town that I work in, that we're here.
Joining me now live is Kasim Outlaw. First off, Kasim, thanks for being with us this morning, but I have a couple of questions. But I want to start this off first by asking, what was your reasoning behind not wanting to get the vaccine?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. To answer your question, I firmly believe that it's everyone's individual decision how to manage their health and access medical procedures. Therefore, when I'm being told what to do with my body and with my health, it's not in alignment with my core beliefs.
And just to be clear, you're not against anyone getting the vaccine or the vaccine in general. You just don't want anybody telling you what to do.
Not at all. I think it's, like I said, it's everyone's personal decision on how they manage that situation. And, we need to be able to make that for ourselves.
So obviously you knew this was coming down the pipe. Had you been talking to the superintendent and the school about what was happening and that you were just not on board with getting this?
There was very limited conversation leading up to the deadlines that were imposed. So I had these conversations with those close to me. But when it came time to actually interact with administration, they might have been a little bit caught off guard by my stance. But it's something that I held close for a while.
Right. And then I want to ask about the testing. There was the option for the weekly testing. What was your reason behind not wanting to do that? Was it an everyday thing? Was it once a week? What was that going to look like?
It's once a week. There's a timeline where we have to submit test results in order to be able to come into the building the following week. But that medical procedure is not in alignment, just as with the inoculation isn't for me personally.
Okay. And then say you do lose your job because, the way it's looking, it's not looking good, but this is, these are your beliefs. This is what you're standing strong by. Do you have anything in the works or any plans in the future? And also, would there be a pension that would be offered?
A pension, I believe, stays in place until I'm of retirement age, and I believe that gets deferred. In terms of what I'm going to do next, I've had some entrepreneurial ventures that have been in the works for a while. I've got a book coming out that I'm waiting to finish and complete and get that out to the world. I've got some other, holistic entrepreneurial ventures that I'm looking into, and I want to continue to teach. There's a lot within me that wants to get out to the world and help people be more healthy, so that's on the forefront.
So we've got about 15 seconds or so, but you were Teacher of the Year. Have you spoken to any of your students about what's happening?
Yes, I've connected with some of them on social media. They miss me. I miss them dearly. I wish them the best, and I'm hoping to connect with them in some way or form soon.
Okay. Kasim Outlaw, thank you for sharing your story, and good luck to you with everything in your future ventures.
Thank you very much.
All right, Carly.
All right, we have a big show in the next hour of Fox and Friends. First, Ian Pryor, Joe Concha, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, and Lara Trump will all join us live. Stay tuned.